Hey again, Coaster fam, this is Jonny for Access Adrenaline, and welcome to our review for Formula at Energylandia. Formula is easily one of the most important roller coasters Vekoma has built to date, and in this review we aim to break down exactly why that is. Unlike our ride accessibility review series, this series breaks down aspects of the park and also the ride itself, taking in things like theming, ride experience, queue lines at a glance, a brief section on accessibility, and a lot covering the history of not only the ride, but also a bit about the parks themselves. With Energylandia being in their relative infancy in terms of the theme park industry as a whole, having only been open just over 10 years but expanded at an unprecedented rate, I wanted to dig into a little bit of history about this amazing place, so you all had a bit more to go on for your visits to this incredible theme park. Formula is a Vekoma space warp launching thrill coaster built at Energylandia in Zator, Poland in 2016. At the time of its inception, Energylandia was a little over 2 years into its life as a theme park, having been constructed from the ground up by the Gosau family, sorry about the translation, a family of Polish entrepreneurs and also thrill seekers alike. At the time of creation, Energylandia was nothing more than a rival to the very nearby Zetaland and boasted a large number of attractions more suited to children and families. But the introduction of a couple of larger scale coasters, like Mayan, a Vekoma suspended looping coaster with vest restraints, and also Dragon, a Vekoma suspended family coaster, or SFC, really started to make them a bit more widely known, at least in the European market. There was not a massive amount else in this park to draw in the thrill seekers, and so Energylandia sought to fix that problem with the introduction of Formula in early 2016. This could arguably be seen as the most important roller coaster to date for Vekoma, as it signalled their transition from their older, often jankier cut and paste designs like the Boomerang and the aforementioned SLCs into a manufacturer fit for the new millennium, introducing models like the Space Warp, of which Formula is one, the Bermuda Blitz, of which one exists just over an hour away from Energylandia in Let Coaster at Legendia, which I have a separate review for in the channel, and later the Shockwave model, which Energylandia themselves brought in with Abyssus in 2021. Formula paved the way for not just these, but many others, not just in Europe, but worldwide too. Formula is a comparatively short Vekoma space warp, an LSM launch coaster model that opened at Energylandia in 2016, and immediately after the lights went out and it was away they went, it showed all of us what it was capable of. The ride overall is very smooth, as are most modern Vekomas that are sampled in Poland. It is also fast paced and is peppered with elements that really keep you on your toes, from the launch track right to the final brake run. This ride, designed once again by Benjamin Bloemendahl, really sought to showcase the direction not just Energylandia, but also Vekoma themselves were heading, as they achieved this in a really big way with Formula. We'll loop back around to the ride experience very shortly, so you can get a bit of a taste on how I felt about it. Before boarding, you of course have the entry plaza and queue line. As you face the main entrance of the ride, two things tower over you immediately behind you. The first of those is the aforementioned Formula restaurant, and the second is the absolutely breathtaking first main element in the ride you're about to experience, an 81-foot tall left turning sidewinder which, as my ride experience section will tell you, serves up a healthy dose of the best hang time imaginable. Heading into the plaza itself, there's then two options for you. You can either go left under Formula's main entrance arch and take in the not at all windy but somewhat lengthy and very wide standby queue line. Or alternatively, you can do what we did for the other two of our three rides and head straight forward past the Formula Planetarium down towards the Fast Pass lockers and Fast Pass entrance. I will offer a bit of a word of warning to those entering via the standby queue though. It borders the Viking Splash Battle ride, and so there is every chance you may get splashed with some water as its ride vehicles pass very close to where you are in the queue line for Formula. Not too much of an issue on those hot summer or early autumn days, but can imagine that to be very cold and wet on early season or winter days. Now, going back into the Fast Pass line, entering this line is approximately a 1 minute walk consisting of no more than 15 stairs, actually it's 16, I counted them, and about a minute of walking overall, and then you're right at the front of the station and ready to board your next train. This is a very simple process and one I found to be potentially assist when it came to accessibility, as the length of this queue is considerably shorter. As for the loading system on Formula, this operates on a first come first served basis, and the way that works is that the automated turnstiles will admit exactly 16 riders for each cycle, as that is the amount of riders needed to fill the train. If, like us, you're waiting in the fast pass queue, it will be overridden to allow you to get onto the platform and pre-select your row for an upcoming train, much like we did on the POV footage that's being shown. Formula's theming is fitting to it, as the ride used to be called Roller Coaster Formula 1 in its first season of operation. However, that was changed to Formula for Season 2 and onwards. Taking in the entry plaza, queue line, ride station and the ride itself, there is a very cohesive theme to this area throughout, as all along the queue line are mounted large Model F1 cars on plinths, the station is covered over like a pit garage, and the trains are adorned with a wonderful red and checkered flag paintwork. The track itself is painted with an eerily reminiscent insert name of Italian car brand here that I can't say for copyright reasons, shade of red. I really like this touch. Even the subsequent launch tunnel out of the station and the siding before the launch track are covered with these polytunnels to remind you of a pit garage, and this makes the theming generally very cohesive, and it definitely sticks to one formula, if you figured the pun, throughout. Overall then, for theming on this ride, Formula will get a 9 out of 10. And it's only missed out on the top spot on the podium because, while yes, the theming is cohesive, all of the theming pieces are somewhat cheap looking in nature and kind of deflect from the aesthetic the ride is meant to give off. However, I can't fault the overall vibe of this ride one bit because it really appeals to me, being a fan of motorsports in general. Looking at the ride experience now, and what can I say about this ride that other coaster YouTubers haven't already said before?
So that was Formula Energylandia, and my good God, that was amazing. That was like Lek, but on speed because of the launch. It was just unreal.
This ride offers an incredible experience, starting from the second you strap into your seat and finishing when you detrain at the end. It's just nothing short of incredible. Starting at the station, you once again wait for the air gates to open and then start to board the ever comfortable new Vekoma trains this ride is equipped with. As I mentioned in my previous Lek coaster video and also my ride accessibility review series, which I'll link in the description below, these seats and restraints are extremely well fitting and comfortable, offering a small amount of give to those of a larger height or weight such as myself. Therefore, in my first ride I sat on the right at the front of the train and was greeted with a similar experience of pulling the over the shoulder lap bar and vest restraint with a redundant seatbelt down over my head. But of course, Vekoma has an accessibility plus point in these new over-the-track trains in that the left side of them offers a slightly roomier and more forgiving experience for larger riders, but I discuss that more in the accessibility review series. Once the trains are checked and verified, the familiar hiss of the brakes releasing fills the station, and you're sent forward and round a very small left turn to come face to face with the launch tunnel. The full train goes into the tunnel and is parked by some static pit crew figures on each side. Smoke then fills the tunnel, lights blaze across the roof of it, and an alarm sounds. You don't expect when the launch is coming, but you do know for definite that it is coming. Once the brakes are released, you're hurled forwards into the launch track, through the curtain of steam and back out, almost jarringly into the broad daylight at a speed of 49 miles an hour or 79 kilometers an hour, and all of that is reached in just 2 seconds. I found this to be a pretty sprightly LSM launch, to be perfectly honest. The launch itself is also pretty forceful, as you get that kick in the back when you hurtle forward, as well as having heightened sense of speed from the clearance in the tunnel, as well as the fog. What follows is a blur of airtime, inversions, laterals and positive Gs. Flying out of the launch tunnel, the first thing that greets you is a giant sidewinder. This one is 81 feet or 25 metres tall, and for those unfamiliar, a sidewinder is similar in profile to that of an Immelman loop, except instead of twisting you straight out and down, it twists you to the side as you descend from the loop. In it, you get some really good positive Gs from up front, but if you're seated in the back, it can also mix in a little bit of hang time as the train apexes the loop, and I found this to be a really interesting experience, especially from the back. Exiting the sidewinder, you're thrown into an impossibly tight and also very low to the ground left-hand turn. No matter where you sit in this coaster, you are absolutely thrown around this turn and also receive a very strong dose of positive G as you round it. Sitting in the middle of the train, I actually almost greyed out on this turn, but at the front, since I could see what was coming, I was absolutely fine. Towards the back, being pulled around this turn by the sheer weight of the train and its speed alone was one of the most intense experiences you can have at a theme park. Following that low turn, if you grey out on it, you tend to recover just in time for what's to come next, a bunny hill over the ride's launch tunnel. This gives everyone on the train some fantastic and sustained flow to air time. This particular airtime moment is easily the best one on the whole ride, purely because it comes moments after being whipped around a low and tight turn. Immediately after coming down from the airtime of the last bunny hill, Formula throws you into this extremely snappy right-handed corkscrew. Owing mainly to the amount of speed you're still carrying off the sidewinder, turn and bunny hill, this corkscrew doesn't deliver any hang time, and I found this to be very similar to how Abyssus's corkscrews behaved as well. What you get in place of the hang time is a small serving of laterals. As you leave the corkscrew, the train continues banking to the right and Formula throws you into another of those low to the ground turns like earlier on in the ride. This one heads right and through the second of the two polytunnels on the ride, and this one delivers some force as it may cause some riders to grey out as you go round it. While not quite as forceful as the turn following the sidewinder, you still get some pretty reasonable G's on this one. Coming out of the tunnel, Formula then leaps over this leftward bank off-axis hill. This particular element is fairly similar to the one you'd find on Lek Coaster at Legendia. It's not massively aggressive like the ones you'd find on RMC coasters, a good example of this being Zadra right here at Energylandia. However, in this particular one, you get a smidge of floater airtime from the front of the train, and however, as mentioned on Lek, it's a bit of a dud towards the back. It's an element Vekoma is seemingly yet to perfect, and I'd love to see them better this element in future coasters because they could really make something good with this. While still carrying a lot of speed, you fly through the final inversion of the ride, another right-handed corkscrew. While I found this one to be slightly less snappy than the first one, but that came as an advantage as it served a small amount of hang time as well as some mild lateral G's no matter where I sat on the train. In preparation for heading towards the brake run, Formula then heads around this gentle left-handed overbank turn which passes around the ride's entrance. This is immediately followed by another small bunny hill that provides a decent bit of floater airtime when you're towards the back of the train, but also a slightly stronger bit towards the front. Formula has by now bled almost all of its mammoth pace off, but has just enough left in the tank to take you around a final low right-hand turn. This is a short and forceless one by comparison to those that came before it, however its sole purpose is to line you up for this final small airtime hill which gives those in the front of the train a little pop of floater as the ride heads into the brake run. Formula does contain a lot of elements for its short duration, and in the three rides I got, I consider them mostly a blur from one to the next with the fast pace, which is surprising considering there's only 1,837 feet or 560 metres of track. The reason for this is because not only does Formula stay low to the ground, something quite rare with modern thrill coasters, but it also has excellent pacing too. After the brakes, you pop around a short 180 degree right hand turn to line you up with the station, and heading into it will end your experience. So, with all that frantic ride experience out of the way, where would I score Formula on my ride rating scale? Well, after careful thought about the entire 40 or so seconds of prime ride time, I found there to be never a dull moment, or one that failed to hit the mark in any way, making this a solid coaster and one worthy to receive an 8.5 out of 10 on my ride experience score. Moving into accessibility now. Formula is best enjoyed if done so via the fast pass lane, as from the lockers and the subsequent turnstile after them, there is roughly a minute of walking or waiting time combined and 16 stairs up into the station. There's a similar amount to get back down to ground level, but also a bit of an overkill 5 minutes of walking to get back round to the fast pass lockers to retrieve any belongings you left there. This is yet another of those rides in Poland in general that seem to exhibit a general lack of disabled access of any kind. And while yes, the fast pass line is relatively short to navigate and quite easy to do so for ambulant wheelchair users, it doesn't provide anything in the way of step-free or elevator-based access. Now, if either Energylandia or Legendia's team happens to watch this, disabled people battle every day to be seen, and in this community, there are more disabled people wanting to enjoy parks and rides than you think. So if they're able to implement some kind of step-free access, that would greatly benefit the experience and serve more customers at the same time. Further to that, the trains are very comfortable. In fact, we cover this in more detail in our recent ride accessibility review for Abyssus, Anaconda and Aztec Swing. The reason I mention this is that Abyssus, Lek and Formula all have the same train or interior and or seat design, despite being themed differently, so any plus point is obviously going to be cross-shared between the reviews. For accommodations, yes, the FastPass system greatly reduces the amount of time spent in queues to almost naught. However, it comes with the trade-off of a long walk back to collect your belongings. I didn't see any of Energylandia's staff making any attempts to accommodate disabled guests. However, I've said it before and will likely do so again. Just because it didn't get witnessed doesn't mean it doesn't happen. Rider comfort is pretty solid in these new Vekoma trains, and I talk about why at great length in my accessibility review mentioned a little bit earlier on. I'll link that in the description if you guys want to know any more. So, for accessibility then, where would I rate Formula? Well, I'd give Formula a 6 out of 10, and that's mainly down to having a fair few stairs and no step-free access, with a long walk back to FastPass to collect your belongings. If an ambulant wheelchair user, for example, had no carer with them, then they would have to abandon their wheelchair and hope and pray that it doesn't get stolen while on the ride. This is something Energylandia really needs to look into and consider further, as more and more disabled people look to head to their park. The final section in this review is of course our patented crap or killer rating, where I assign a rating to a ride based on whether it wasn't that great or if it was amazing overall with all factors considered. And so, where does Formula place? Well, for the second review in a row, Poland are getting full marks, as Formula joins its compatriot Lech Coaster in the killer section. I wonder if, or even when, we may have our first ride heading into the red zone. As for Formula's overall score, we've taken everything into consideration and decided that our rating for Formula at Energylandia is an 8 out of 10, and here's why. The theming and ride experience are both brilliant, but somewhat let down by the accessibility issues mentioned previously. If Energylandia looked to fix these issues, it would join Lech Coaster in being considered a world-class ride from all aspects. And so, that concludes episode 2 of our ride review series, looking at all aspects of the amazing Formula at Energylandia. Did you agree with our thoughts? Have you ridden this ride yourself? And if so, what are your own opinions? If you've liked what I had to say about Formula, and the spiel about Energylandia as a whole, then there is of course a button just for that purpose down below. If you enjoy our content, please feel free to subscribe, as there will be plenty more roller coaster, theme park and accessibility content coming up right here on the channel. Until then, we post new POV content on Tuesdays, TikTok and Shorts content will be coming soon, and long form content such as these vlogs and our accessibility reviews will go up every Friday. I've been Johnny. This has been another roller coaster review from Access Adrenaline, helping to deliver those theme park thrills for all. Thank you for watching, take care, and we'll see you next time.